That same morning, Leo Zeal stepped into the great city, carrying a quiet confidence he did not fully understand. The world knew him as Leo Zeal, a young swordsman dressed like a rookie adventurer. From the instant he arrived, Leo felt this place was unlike anything he had ever seen. He recognized it as Insbrook, the city built around the entrance to the Great Labyrinth where the Demon Lord lived, a place fed by adventurers, trade, and dangerous dreams. With a steady breath, Leo decided this was where his life as an adventurer would finally begin. Then he stopped before a towering statue of the Demon Lord, caught off guard by how boldly it loomed over the town square. Leo awkwardly admitted that the town was clearly making a fortune from the Demon Lord's labyrinth. Even so, he could not shake how strange it was that they had raised a statue to the Demon Lord at all. Forcing himself to move again, Leo pulled his eyes away. With the statue behind him, Leo brightly decided the first thing he needed was food. As Leo Zeal happily turned his thoughts to eating, a sharp crack rang out from the Demon Lord statue behind him. Leo froze at the sound just as a cry of alarm tore through the crowd. People pointed in horror, shouting that a crack had split open the Demon Lord statue. An old man declared that this was exactly what the prophecy had foretold, and panic spread at once. Someone in the crowd insisted this meant the Demon Lord had been slain, while Leo stared in confusion, unable to understand why everyone was losing their minds over a cracked statue. A warning all of a sudden rang out that the statue was about to collapse, and Leo looked up before he could stop himself. The statue burst apart, and a massive demon-like figure dropped from the wreckage straight in front of Leo. Leo could only stare as it slammed into the ground with crushing force. In the darkness, a mysterious voice called for Yoshito Hirase to wake up and break the curse. The scene abruptly shifted to a modern city lined with towering buildings. Inside a modern office, Yoshito Hirase sat quietly at his computer as that strange awakening gave way to his ordinary life. A close-up identified him as Yoshito Hirase as he kept clicking in silence, his expression flat and unreadable. Then, someone all of a sudden offered congratulations, yanking his attention toward unexpected news. A smiling female coworker thanked everyone warmly, and the situation becomes awkward. A male coworker explained to Yoshito Hirase that Haruka-chan was getting married and would be leaving the company next month. The woman noticed his muted reaction and pointed out that he had liked Haruka-chan, while he answered with only a quiet acknowledgement. Another comment twisted the knife, saying his hesitation had cost him his chance, and that Haruka's future husband worked in the sales department. As the city and train platform blurred into the background, Yoshito Hirase drifted into bitter reflection over what he had lost. He admitted that Haruka had been his junior who joined 3 years after him, and he regretted that if he had only shown more courage and asked her out, they might have had a future. Alone with his thoughts, Yoshito Hirase mocked himself for wasting his youth and lamented that he might have won Haruka over if he had been bolder. Yoshito all of a sudden collided back-to-back with a hooded figure as the stranger angrily told him to quit fooling around. He was flung forward and nearly crashed into a train-like carriage before a bright impact stopped him at the last instant. When his eyes opened, someone nearby breathed sharply that he had finally regained consciousness. 2 men looked down at him in relief and admitted it had been far too close. Still holding his head, Yoshito was told he had nearly been crushed by a Demon Lord statue. From above, the broken stone and anxious crowd made it clear he was alive, and someone quickly asked whether he was hurt anywhere. Faces from his modern office life flashed to his mind, and Yoshito realized his lost memories were coming back. He froze as both worlds overlapped inside his head, and the shock left him trembling. Fighting through the pain, he wondered if those memories belonged to a past life, and questioned whether he was Yoshito Hirase or Leo Zeal, while a bystander nervously suggested getting a doctor. Trying to calm them, he apologized, said he was fine, and staggered away as the others watched in confusion. Leo Zeal remembered that as the 3rd son with no land to inherit, he had been given only a meager send-off and pushed out. He confirmed that he had come to Insbrook to become an adventurer, and that much, at least, was certain. At the same time, he understood that he also carried the memories of Yoshito Hirase, who had died after what he saw as a miserable life. He remembered the mysterious voice urging Yoshito Hirase to wake up and break the curse, and the words left him wondering what that curse even was. Leo rejected the thought of living another hollow life like Yoshito and swore this rebirth would be different. Fired up, he vowed to succeed as an adventurer and pictured himself winning the admiration of a beautiful woman. His attention settled on a striking woman nearby, and he instantly compared his dream to someone exactly like her. Then, something shining caught his eye, and he looked up in confusion before realizing it was a star-shaped earring. The woman noticed his stare at once, and her sharp glare sent a chill through him. Caught completely off guard, Leo panicked and blurted out confused excuses as she angrily demanded to know what he was staring at. The dark-haired elf woman seized Leo by the collar, accused him of spying on her, and demanded to know who had sent him, leaving him stunned and scrambling for words. When Leo nervously explained that he had only been curious about the star-shaped earring, she repeated his excuse with open contempt and clearly did not believe a word of it. As Leo glanced around and saw that nobody else seemed to notice the shining earring at all, he started to wonder if he alone could see it. Even while realizing she was far too intimidating to approach normally, Leo could not help admitting to himself that the dark-haired elf woman was striking. Desperate to salvage the situation, he steeled himself and convinced himself this might be his only chance. Forcing an awkward smile, Leo confessed that he had been staring because she had caught his attention. The dark-haired elf woman lowered her face and condemned his behavior as utterly disgraceful. With fury in her eyes, she sneered that he was fallen nobility who had sunk into shameless vulgarity after losing his status. Before Leo could recover, she struck him hard and sent him sprawling backward in shock. Standing over him with a murderous glare, the dark-haired elf woman warned that if he ever came near her again, she would kill him without hesitation, and Leo could only panic beneath the threat. Back in bed, Leo simmered over the dark-haired elf woman's hostility and bitterly wondered if she was some kind of rabid menace. At the inn that night, he lay sprawled on his bed, still rattled and unable to let the encounter go. He complained to himself that her arrogant attitude alone was enough to make his anger flare all over again. His thoughts briefly turned dark as he imagined getting even with such a strong-willed woman, then instantly recoiled in shame and mentally begged to be put out of his misery. Leo jolted himself out of it at once and panicked over what he had almost allowed himself to think. Then he stubbornly told himself there was no way he would ever choose someone like that harsh, overbearing woman. Sighing, he thought that if he still had Leo's zeal space, he might have found the courage to ask Haruka out instead. As he looked back on the chaos, Leo summed up his day as nearly dying under a statue, recovering memories of his past life, and getting dragged into trouble with a crazed female knight. After that, he wandered the streets of Insbrook and finished registering as an adventurer at the guild. Lying alone and staring upward, Leo quietly accepted that his past life had truly returned. Leo's zeal rejected his old life as Yoshito Hirase and firmly decided to live only as Leo from now on. Lying in bed, Leo swore he would make the most of this new life. When he next found himself outside in the city, Leo froze in confusion and realized something was terribly wrong. He could not understand what was happening and was alarmed that he had somehow gone from the inn bed to outside without noticing. Nearby people shouted that the Demon Lord statue had cracked and declared that the prophecy had come true, insisting the Demon Lord must have been slain. Seeing the damaged Demon Lord statue, Leo remembered that it had not collapsed the day before, and his confusion deepened. Staring at the scene in shock, he struggled to make sense of what was unfolding around him. He sat alone at a table, lost in thought as he tried to piece it all together. Leo wondered if someone had carried him outside while he slept and anxiously questioned why anyone would do that. His unease worsened when he noticed that crazy woman with the star on her head had appeared again. The star-headed woman stormed up to Leo and angrily demanded to know why he was staring at her. Leo began to realize this might mean exactly what he feared. She accused Leo of spying on her and pressed him to reveal who had sent him. Her expression shifted when his reaction caught her off guard. Leo all of a sudden concluded that time itself had rewound, and the terrifying idea connected her presence with the skull-faced figure from before. Trying to process it, Leo could only wonder how something like this was even possible. He realized the turning point had to lead back to the inn. Remembering what came after that, Leo recalled himself asleep in bed at the inn. The woman completely lost her temper and furiously hurled an insult at him. When Leo threw her own words back at her, she snapped that he had no right to mock her with them. Leo shot back that she clearly did not understand her place, showing he was done retreating. The marked woman coldly moved to strike and made it clear she wanted him dead, so Leo ran for his life. Leo desperately tried telling people what had happened, but no matter who he spoke to, no one else seemed to realize that time had rewound. After reincarnating, this was only Leo's second time reliving the same day, but he realized one thing for certain: he had to stay far away from that rabid woman. As Leo remembered falling asleep safely at the inn, he thought he would not have enough lives to survive otherwise. The skull-faced figure all of a sudden appeared and warned that everything was about to collapse, jolting Leo into panic. A violent shock tore through the town, blasting the center of the city apart. Leo stared in disbelief and could only mutter that this could not be happening. Looking over the city again, Leo wondered in shock if time had rewound once more. Leo then considered an even stranger possibility, that the exact same day might be repeating itself again and again. Leo heard his stomach growl, and that simple hunger finally pulled him back from the edge. Food came first, he decided, because one more thought might send him over again. Leo ordered 2 skewers from a street stall, and the vendor casually named the price, 6 copper coins. But the second his hand touched the pouch, the rattle inside made him freeze. With the food still in his hands, the truth hit all at once. The money he had already spent before the rewind was back, which meant the loop had returned him to before he ever paid it. That could only mean one thing, only he remembered, while the day kept snapping back no matter what he did. The realization jolted through Leo, and he laughed as if the world's rules had finally cracked. Still laughing, he decided there was only one thing worth doing now. With a crooked grin, Leo told himself his miserable, lonely life was finally about to change. He headed straight for a brothel, convinced the reset had handed him the perfect loophole. Telling himself the rewind would erase everything anyway, Leo shamelessly chose to chase reckless distractions without restraint. As he stepped inside, he framed it as the chance to erase every regret his old life had left behind. Leo slapped down his money and demanded the finest woman in the entire place. The attendant calmly accepted and promised to send him the best woman in the house. When someone finally entered to spend the night with him, Leo instantly felt something was different. The woman introduced herself as Anastasia, and Leo was stunned by how striking she was. Overwhelmed by his luck, Leo grinned and silently praised the time loop for this impossible gift. Anastasia gently asked if this was Leo's first time in a place like that, and the moment becomes overwhelming and emotionally difficult. With a soft smile, Anastasia told him she would stay with him all night, making him even more flustered. Anastasia answered with amused approval, and Leo could barely process how boldly she indulged him. Leo was overwhelmed and nervously thought Anastasia was going all out, the intensity leaving him stunned. Then, without warning, Leo was outside in the city again, locked in place as the reset struck. He turned and saw the giant demon lord statue behind him starting to crack, proving the loop had begun again. Realizing exactly what came next, Leo broke into a run as debris started falling and the city slid back into chaos. He checked his coin pouch and stared, stunned, when even the money he had spent was completely restored. Leo burst into laughter and praised reincarnation and time loops as the greatest advantage he could have asked for. Drunk on that idea, he set his sights on the brothel again, ready to use the repeating day for nothing but empty thrills. The moment he stepped inside, an attendant welcomed Leo in, and he walked forward without hesitation. When several women were presented to him, Leo was told to choose anyone he wanted, and the fantasy deepened. Leo fixated on the curvy woman and shamelessly imagined having her attention, letting impulse take over. Then he noticed the cool, short-haired woman and felt his reckless excitement climb even higher, drawn to her dangerous edge. When his gaze landed on the smaller girl, Leo felt a strange urge to protect her, which only unsettled him more. As he weighed the options, Leo smugly told himself it hardly mattered, because across endless loops he could meet them all. Surrounded by attention, Leo imagined himself drowning in approval, and the thrill of repetition fed his ego. But then a darker thought cut through it all. Once the day reset, none of them would remember him. That truth stopped him cold, and even inside the fantasy, Leo began to wonder what any of this meant. In his mind, endless indulgence curdled into something hellish, as empty gratification all of a sudden felt rotten. The realization hit hard, and Leo lurched forward in distress as nausea and panic flooded him. Stunned into silence, he stared ahead while the emptiness of the loop and the weight of his actions closed in. Leo staggered through the street in a daze, and nearby men noticed how unstable he looked and kept their distance. The bystanders quietly warned each other not to go near him, because something about Leo felt deeply off. As Leo kept stumbling forward, the men decided he was probably unhinged and agreed it was safer not to interfere. Leo lowered his head and bitterly muttered to himself, asking why this kept happening and what he had done to deserve it. Still drowning in self-pity, Leo failed to watch where he was going and nearly collided with the woman ahead of him. The dark-haired elf woman reacted instantly and struck Leo, furious that he had run into her. She grabbed him and exploded in anger, calling him a bastard as her outrage flared on the spot. Glowering at him, the dark-haired elf woman snapped that he should watch where he was going. Leo only stared blankly while she clipped her tongue, called him recklessly stupid, and coldly told him to die if he wanted to. Left with that brutal warning, Leo turned away in silence, and something inside him shifted. Leo stood atop the tower and decided that dying was the only way out. As he stepped off the edge, he grimly hoped that if he were reborn again, the next life would at least be normal. With empty eyes, Leo pleaded to God for even a slightly more ordinary life. He threw himself from the tower and reached out helplessly as the ground rushed up to meet him. His fall ended in a brutal impact. In the next instant, Leo was back on the street again with a creature nearby, as if everything had reset once more. A cracking sound and Leo's ragged breathing made it clear the deadly scene had returned exactly as before. Trembling and on the verge of tears, Leo realized in horror that he was back there again. That truth shattered what little hope he had left, and Leo screamed in total despair. Staring at the skull-faced figure, Leo bitterly understood that he could not even die. Crushed by despair, Leo curled up and demanded to know why this had happened to him. As he clawed at the ground in panic, Leo wondered what he had done to deserve this suffering. His thoughts spiraled as he searched for a reason, wondered if reincarnation had only brought pain, and looked for someone to blame. Still shaking, Leo could only stare ahead and ask himself what any of it was for. Then a strange voice urged Yoshito Hirase to wake up and break the curse. Leo clung to that single idea and realized that if this was a curse, then it had to be breakable. He all of a sudden remembered the dark-haired elf woman and realized she had appeared on the same repeating day countless times, making her his best lead. In that instant, Leo pictured the woman's star-shaped mark and earring, and the clue struck deep. He concluded that in this nightmare, the strange woman with the mark above her head was the key. The realization came too late, and Leo cursed himself for not seeing it sooner. Leo's zeal fixated on the dark-haired elf woman and became certain she knew something about the curse. He spotted her inside the bar and felt a flash of hope when he realized she was there again. Leo hurried after her and called out, trying to stop her before she could leave. He reached for her shoulder and told her he needed to ask something important. The instant he touched her, she spun around in fury and slammed him down before he could react. Leo panicked and tried to stop things from spiraling, but the words refused to come out right. The dark-haired elf woman coldly identified herself as Iria Ellington, the 4th royal guard of the kingdom, and made it clear he had crossed a line. Bleeding and terrified, Leo tried to explain that he meant no harm and only wanted to ask something. The moment he mentioned a star above her head, Iria reacted instantly and struck him before he could finish. She pinned Leo down, demanded that he speak right away, and concluded that someone had sent him. Iria Ellington coldly declared that if someone truly wanted to deal with her, they should send someone stronger. Leo's zeal was shaken and admitted to himself that he was no match for Iria, seeing her as terrifyingly dangerous. Then the moment shattered, and the scene shifted as the loop reset once again. Leo realized he had returned and grimly concluded that Iria had beaten him to death. He was stunned by how absurdly strong she was and thought a royal guard at that level was seriously dangerous. Even so, Leo decided the beating had not been pointless, because he had learned Iria's name, her position, and that someone seemed to be targeting her. He concluded that the smartest move this time was to avoid direct contact with Iria. Instead, Leo decided he would watch her all day and track everything from a safe distance. When Iria appeared again with the strange star above her head, Leo quietly prepared to put that plan into motion. As Iria walked away and the interaction becomes difficult to navigate, as Leo watched from afar, Iria Ellington all of a sudden sensed something, turned sharply, and demanded that whoever was hiding show themselves. Iria raised her voice and ordered the hidden presence to reveal itself at once. Leo panicked when he realized she had noticed movement, but her words made him understand she was calling to someone else. 2 armed men emerged from hiding, and one smugly remarked that she had already figured it out. Leo froze in confusion, insisted to himself that it was not him, and wondered who those men were. The attackers surrounded Iria, and one declared that they were the ones targeting the city lord's knight. Leo hesitated over whether to help, but chose only to watch, believing that even if Iria died, the loop would bring him back. Facing the ambush without fear, Iria challenged them directly and told them to come at her. The assassins rushed in from multiple sides with blades raised, trying to overwhelm her in one strike. Iria answered in a single burst, cutting through their assault so fast that the attackers were thrown aside before they could even touch her. As the defeated attackers crashed around her, Iria stood there completely unfazed, and even Leo was left stunned by how instantly she ended it. Iria noticed Leo had been nearby the entire time and coolly remarked that there had been no need for him to interfere. Leo forced out an uneasy smile, and the situation shifts into territory no one prepared for. After that encounter, Leo continued tailing Iria several more times and eventually traced her route back to Leo's inn. As he reviewed her movements, Leo noticed her routine almost never changed and concluded that, for a royal knight, this inn was practically hostile ground. That realization hit him hard as he focused on how much danger surrounded a knight in a place full of enemies. Staring at notes marked Iria Ellington and the ambush time, Leo concluded that if anyone wanted to strike her, this was the one place they could do it. At 19,042, the attackers closed in again, but Iria faced them without fear and told them to come. Before the clash could continue, Iria sharply called for enough and reacted to a sudden interruption. Leo finally stepped in and declared that he could not stand by while a woman was under attack. Leo's zeal jumped in front of Iria Ellington and declared that he had come to help. Iria right away told him to stay out of it, while Leo thought helping her might let him get closer. As the enemies closed in, Iria urged them to come on, and Leo decided this fight might teach him something about her. Leo traded blows with one attacker and realized Iria might not know anything at all about the star or the loops. Even so, Leo kept fighting because he had no other lead left to chase. After dropping one enemy, Leo all of a sudden noticed another attacker moving in behind Iria and panicked. Leo shouted for Iria to watch out as the attack rushed straight at her. He threw himself in front of Iria and blocked the strike at the last possible second, taking the hit himself. Iria instantly countered and cut down the attacker, ending the threat in a flash. Wounded and bent over, Leo realized that had been the final enemy. Iria rushed to Leo's side, told him to stay calm, and insisted she would not let him die while she still owed him. As Leo lay there injured, he noticed the watch he had used to follow Iria and realized with relief that this lucky break might save him. The moment Iria saw the watch, her expression changed, and she all of a sudden pulled Leo close in shock. Leo thought that even death would not be the end for him because he would only return again. Leo realized the watch he had used to track Iria had saved him, and that tiny coincidence became the turning point that changed her attitude. The scene shifted to Iria's inn, where she carried Leo back to recover. While treating his injuries, Iria explained that the medicine came from the royal guard and was unlike anything sold in ordinary shops. After thanking her and apologizing for the trouble, Leo carefully asked whether she had noticed anything strange happening lately. Iria paused and repeated that he was asking about something strange, something out of the ordinary. Iria then said his question reminded her of the news that the statue of the Demon King had collapsed. Iria said she had been there herself and had heard people talking about the Demon King being defeated. Leo said the story sounded exaggerated, but Iria calmly insisted it was true. Leo was stunned and asked if she really meant that. Iria explained that the statue had been built by the Imperial Court's greatest mage to absorb a small amount of the Demon King's power, and now that it had collapsed, it was no longer suppressing his magic. Leo wondered if his endless loop was connected to the Demon King, then questioned how he himself had become tied to that existence. Realizing he would not learn anything more from this, Leo thanked Iria for treating him and prepared to leave. As he tried to head out, Iria hurriedly stopped him and told him to wait. Leo looked back in confusion and asked what was wrong. Flustered and embarrassed, Iria admitted that she did not even know his name yet. Leo introduced himself as Leo Zeal, finally giving Iria the answer she wanted. Iria nervously reached toward Leo and shyly asked him to stay with her a little longer. Leo froze in confusion while Iria sat beside him with her head lowered, too embarrassed to meet his eyes. Leo asked why she had helped him, then admitted he simply could not ignore her situation. Iria was stunned when Leo described her as a damsel in distress, and the words struck her deeply. Fidgeting nervously, Iria confessed that no one had ever protected her before, and no one had ever called her that either. After a tense silence on the couch, Iria quietly asked if she could ask him something else. Struggling through her embarrassment, Iria asked whether Leo had a woman he was especially close to, like a girlfriend or fiancée. Leo understood what kind of relationship she meant, and the interaction takes a turn neither of them expected. Iria softly accepted his answer, though her nervousness only seemed to deepen. Blushing intensely, Iria finally gathered her courage and asked Leo to stay by her side. Leo went blank in shock, unable to process what Iria had just asked. Iria awkwardly tried to make herself sound appealing, wondering if Leo simply preferred a different kind of girl. Leo blurted out that, to him, Iria was very beautiful, and the praise overwhelmed her instantly. Iria's composure broke, and she rushed toward him without thinking. She all of a sudden closed the distance and clung to him, leaving him stunned as her frustration and embarrassment spilled out at once. Fighting through tears and shame, Iria confessed that she had never acted like this before and begged Leo not to think badly of her. As Leo sat there frozen, he realized Iria was treating this as a response to what he had done for her. Caught in the intensity of the moment, the two were left even more shaken, and Iria's unsteady breathing showed how overwhelmed she was. Iria began removing part of her outer outfit, pushing forward despite how nervous and flustered she was. Then, Leo all of a sudden shot upright in triumph, convinced he had finally escaped the time loop. Leo all of a sudden noticed a new skill called Link had been added, and the unexpected change jolted him awake. Seeing his reaction, Iria worried that something was wrong and gently checked on him. Leo quickly apologized and told Iria she should rest a little longer. Iria realized the star mark was gone now, and she shyly connected that to what had happened between them last night. Leo right away suspected that Star had something to do with the loop. He then wondered if staying beside the girl with the star had been the true key to escaping it. As they prepared to leave before noon, Iria reminded Leo that he had forgotten something important, leaving him confused. Iria firmly said she had to tell her father, reminding Leo that she was a nobleman's daughter who was supposed to be married. Leo froze as the weight of her words hit him, stunned by the realization that she was going to be married. Iria added that if they left today, they would reach her family's home in 2 days, while Leo stood there in shaken silence. Leo panicked as he realized he had agreed to an engagement too quickly and never expected the time loop to end at this exact moment. Iria tried to calm him by saying her family was powerful, with her brother leading the kingdom's knights and her father once serving as prime minister, so they might be angry but would not go so far as to destroy him. Leo broke into a cold sweat and admitted to himself that he was in serious trouble. Elsewhere, Iria noticed she had not returned to the throne room even though morning should have already come. Standing on the deepest level of the dungeon, Iria wondered whether time itself was even moving forward. Back in the room, Iria cheerfully offered Leo food with bright affection. Leo reacted badly the moment she fed him, coughing hard while Iria stood behind him. Iria clasped her hands with delight and gushed that her husband looked unbelievably cute, leaving Leo speechless. Leo nervously brought up the marriage issue, and Iria right away asked whether he had actually meant it. When Leo tried to flatter her by saying marrying someone as beautiful as her would be a dream come true, Iria sharply demanded to know what he was really trying to say. Iria bashfully insisted that Leo was exaggerating, called him her husband with open affection, and Leo could only agree weakly while feeling like his situation was doomed. A first, outside drew attention as people gathered below, and Leo noticed the growing commotion from the window. Leo looked out and realized there was some kind of disturbance happening outside. Someone in the crowd explained that adventurers were gathering at the dungeon entrance in huge numbers. Others added that the guild was preparing to offer a very large reward. Leo guessed that this might be because the Demon King had possibly already been defeated. He also learned that a young woman, everyone called the Lady of Valor, had entered the dungeon about a week earlier, which made him start wondering if she truly was a hero. Iria quietly revealed that she had already heard rumors about that Lady of Valor before. Hearing that, Leo grew serious and began questioning what exactly this leaf was and what had happened to it. As he recalled the shattered demon ward statue, Leo suspected that simply being near it had exposed him to some strange magic. Iria noticed Leo frowning and pressed him about his expression, but he awkwardly brushed it off as nothing. Iria beamed and told Leo that as her husband he had just become the son-in-law of the Ellington family, so he should feel thrilled by his sudden good fortune. Leo repeated the idea in disbelief as he realized that marriage to Iria would also give him authority over part of the Ellington family lands. Iria added that if Leo wanted a position at the royal palace instead, she had no objection and said her father could arrange it. But then she reminded him that before any of that, he would have to face her father and brother, and the pressure hit him all over again. Iria casually suggested that once they finished eating, they should head straight to her family's territory, making Leo panic at how fast everything was moving. Sensing his hesitation, Iria asked if he did not want to go, and Leo nervously denied it while clearly failing to hide his fear. A heavy silence followed, and the unseen listener accepted Leo's answer for the moment. Leo then stepped outside and was stunned to find an extremely luxurious carriage waiting for them. Iria happily pulled Leo along and declared that they were going to enjoy a sweet newlywed life together, while he forced himself to go along with it. Iria flushed and warned that if the carriage walls were too thin, that could cause serious trouble. The instant Leo understood, Iria reddened even more and told him to remember it, because she would not say it twice. When Leo heard it would still take 2 more days to reach the Ellington family territory, he froze and nervously asked if he had heard that right. After learning they would leave the forest and spend the night in a village, Leo felt each mile dragging him closer to disaster. As the carriage rolled on, Leo admitted to himself that the long ride was already making his back ache. Then the next violent jolt sent Iria crashing straight into Leo, and her startled cry made him panic. Seeing Iria lose her balance, Leo quickly asked if she was hurt. Iria right away called out to the conductor and demanded to know what was happening. The conductor looked back in alarm and warned them that the carriage was under attack. When they looked outside, Leo and Iria were stunned to see armed bandits closing in from all sides. The bandits circled the carriage, and their leader ordered the others not to kill the passengers yet because he wanted to know whether some rich young woman was inside. Leo Zeal warned Iria Ellington that there were probably around 10 bandits, but Iria remained cold and unmoved. One of the bandits grinned greedily and said the situation looked better than he expected. Iria moved in an instant and struck before the man could react, leaving him reeling from her speed. Another bandit could only stare as his companion was violently dropped right in front of him. Iria declared that these petty bandits had dared to ruin the beginning of her life with Leo Zeal, and she warned that even 100 or 200 of them would not satisfy her anger. The bandits panicked, called her insane, and desperately ran deeper into the forest. Iria refused to let them go and right away chased after them. Leo shouted after her and urgently told her not to pursue them. Ignoring his warning, Iria ran into the forest as eerie laughter echoed ahead and made everything feel wrong. Iria pushed through the trees in frustration and demanded to know where the fleeing bandits had gone. Leo caught up behind her and anxiously asked what was wrong as Iria scanned the area without a word. A strange lantern all of a sudden appeared in the darkness, and the air turned ominous. Armored soldiers stepped into view with that lantern, and their formation made it clear this had never been an ordinary bandit ambush. Realizing they were completely surrounded, Leo asked in shock if these men were bandits too. Iria saw the crest and grimly concluded that they were the personal forces of the Lord of Insbrook. Understanding that she was the true target, Iria apologized to Leo as she accepted that he had been dragged into this. Leo told her they could worry about that later and urged her to focus on finding a way out first. Iria coldly declared that there was only one answer now. She launched herself at the nearest armored soldier and struck before the encirclement could close any tighter. Iria ordered Leo to attack with her, and both of them moved at once against the soldiers pressing in. Breathing hard under the pressure, Iria realized there were far too many enemies for a normal escape. Even when some were struck down, more armored soldiers kept coming, making the fight feel endless. A soldier slammed Leo to the ground, and Iria turned in shock as he cursed their situation. Iria saw an important item fall away and desperately shouted that they must not let Leo escape or even move. The enemy right away barked an order for Iria to drop her sword. He warned that if she resisted, Leo would pay for it. One armored soldier pointed at Iria and ordered the others to capture her right away, and they moved without hesitation. A nearby soldier mockingly called Iria a monster after seeing how fiercely she had fought. Surrounded by dozens of fully armored soldiers, Iria glared at the man before her and bitterly realized this trap had been set by that bastard. The city lord's eldest son stepped forward with a smug smile and greeted Iria as though this were a casual reunion. Iria glared back and explained that she had only entered the area because her father had ordered her to deal with a dangerous intruder roaming their territory. While Leo was pinned down by armored soldiers, the man claimed he did not even know Leo and said they should kill him now. Iria panicked and insisted that she had only met Leo by chance, then begged them to spare him because he had nothing to do with this. The city lord's son mockingly repeated Iria's words and made it obvious that he did not believe a single one. Then he coldly offered to spare Leo's life on one condition: Iria would become his servant. Iria froze where she stood, unable to hide how hard that demand hit her. After a long, painful silence, Iria lowered her head and said that she understood. Leo cried out for Iria to stop while the soldiers kept him helplessly pinned behind her. The man burst into ugly laughter and cruelly ordered his new servant to kneel before him. Leo struggled against the soldiers and desperately screamed for them to stop. Fighting back tears, Iria asked Leo to forgive her and said that no matter what happened, she still wanted him to live. Laughing at her pain, the city lord's son ordered Iria to swear that she would become his servant. Then he forced her to vow lifelong loyalty to Borg-sama as she stood trapped before him. With her head lowered and her voice nearly gone, Iria said that she swore. Trembling with humiliation, Iria declared that she would be his loyal servant. The moment she called him Borg-sama, the man lit up and boasted that this was incredible. Drunk on her submission, he called Iria a high-quality servant while roughly seizing her by the arm. Iria flinched with anger and shame, but she forced herself to endure it. Grinning wickedly, Borg told Iria he would reward her and ordered her to accept it as his generosity. Leo screamed for them to stop as Iria, cornered before Borg's men, was driven even deeper into humiliation. With tears in her eyes, Iria rejected it in her heart, her fear and shame laid bare across her face. Borg leaned closer with disgusting delight and said he would show Iria his favor, leaving her frozen in revulsion. At that instant, Leo shouted for him to stop, and the scene abruptly cut away as if time itself had snapped. Leo jolted upright, still screaming for them to stop, drenched in sweat and shaken by what he had just seen. Startled and confused, Leo looked around and asked where he was, and a voice answered that he was at the inn. Seeing the peaceful town outside, Leo wondered in shock if he had somehow returned to the loop again. As Leo tried to process it, he admitted that this time he was truly glad to be back, while Iria stared beside him in confusion. Iria burst into tears of relief and declared that as long as Leo was safe, she was truly happy. As Iria clung to him, Leo stiffened in alarm and urgently told her to wait. Iria pulled back in confusion and denied his assumption as Leo concluded that getting close to her had let him escape the loop. Leo hurriedly admitted that his guess was only partly right, then explained that everything had changed the moment another man laid hands on Iria. Leo confessed that was when he finally realized how deeply he cared for Iria, leaving her stunned as she quietly asked if he meant it. Overwhelmed, Leo bowed his head and apologized for all the pain she had suffered because of the loop, struggling to go on. Leo said from the bottom of his heart that he was sincerely relieved he had not lost Iria to that fate. As Leo reached toward her, Iria turned flustered and teased that he was acting like a helpless husband before telling him to leave it to her. Blushing softly, Iria told him that in moments like this, all he had to say was that he loved her. Leo followed her lead and admitted that he loved her too, and the two shared a quiet moment. Smiling to her blush, Iria warmly told Leo that she loved him too. Then, Iria exploded in outrage when she realized Leo was saying he had needed to be with other women to escape the loop. Leo awkwardly admitted that escaping the loop really had required that condition. Iria instantly snapped and refused to accept any idea that would force Leo to betray her. After thinking it over, Iria realized there was actually no need to escape the loop at all. Iria declared that if they were doomed to repeat the same day, then they only needed to make that day the best one possible. Leo panicked at Iria's possessive conclusion as she made it clear that he belonged only to her, and he hurriedly insisted he would never let anyone else get close to him. 30 days later, the situation still had not changed. At last, Iria tearfully agreed to let Leo test the loophole a single time only for the sake of ending the endless cycle. Leo laughed in relief and said he was glad she finally understood. Back on the main street, Iria asked what they should do next, and Leo reasoned that if the day was repeating, there should be a girl nearby with a star floating above her head. Leo remembered that he had been the only one able to see that star before, then wondered if he could still spot it now. Leo said that if only he could see the mark, then asking other people would be pointless, so he and Iria would have to search the area themselves. They spent time checking different parts of town, but even after searching the square, the streets, and the crowds, Leo still found nothing. Iria let out a tired sigh and admitted they still had not found even a single clue. Leo could only awkwardly agree as the search dragged on without results. Then they arrived at a church, and the sight stopped them cold. Leo noted that the church seemed unusually small for a town of this size. As he looked inside, a star all of a sudden flashed in the darkness and instantly seized his attention. Leo shouted that he had found the star, and Iria urgently demanded to know where it was. Pointing ahead, Leo said the star was deeper inside beyond the chapel, though Iria still could not see it herself. Iria brushed that aside and eagerly pulled Leo forward, determined to check it out at once. Inside the church, Leo told Iria the star was hovering above someone in the front row, and Iria pushed him to make sure. When they focused their eyes, they realized the marked person was only a child, quietly praying near the altar. Iria stiffened in shock and suspicion, while Leo hurried to deny any improper intention and insisted that was not the issue. Iria decided they needed to stay calm and wait until the prayer service ended before going near the girl. The priest soon closed the gathering and announced that the day's prayer had ended. As the worshippers began filing out and the scene shifts into uncomfortable territory, Arya right away proposed taking the girl by force, but Leo flatly refused. Leo warned that a move like that would make them look like criminals, so he insisted they find another way. They approached the priest instead, and Iria explained that thieves had attacked them and they had nowhere to stay because the knight's order would only send help tomorrow. Keeping her voice steady, and the moment becomes awkward and difficult to ignore, the priest apologized that the church lodging had no rooms left, but said there was still space in the storage room, and Iria accepted at once. He then called for Sister Smisha and asked her to guide the two of them. The nun calmly agreed and addressed him respectfully as father. As Sister Smisha led them onward, Leo stared in surprise while Iria struggled to find words for her reaction. On the way, Sister Smisha explained that because this was the Demon Lord's territory, support from the central church had been cut off and repairs were no longer possible. Even so, she said they had chosen to remain there for the sake of the adventurers in that town. Iria looked impressed and told Sister Smisha that such devotion at her age was truly admirable. Leo awkwardly tried to cut in, hinting that Iria might be getting the wrong idea. With a bright smile, Sister Smisha revealed that she was actually an adult. That answer stunned both Leo and Iria reacted with open disbelief. Leo looked again and became visibly flustered as his attention drifted in an awkward direction. He realized, with burning embarrassment, that Sister Smisha looked far more grown than he had first assumed. Before he could recover, something smacked him in the face and jolted him back to reality. Iria angrily demanded to know where he had been looking, while Sister Smisha worried the noise had been too loud and asked if he was all right. Once they settled inside, Leo looked around the shabby space and realized the church had truly given them nothing more than a plain storage room. Iria then asked Leo what he thought, clearly waiting for his honest answer. Leo reasoned that since Sister Smisha was an adult, sharing the room should not be a problem, and Iria instantly shut him down and clarified that she meant the room itself. A knock cut them off, and Sister Smisha announced that she had brought food. She entered with a tray, asked them to eat, and quietly said she would leave it there for them. Watching her leave, Leo admitted that this was about the level of service he expected from a church. Leo looked at the meal and instantly judged it to be painfully plain. Iria snapped that if he complained after being served this, he would deserve what came next. Iria then added that Leo was in no position to act spoiled over food. As Leo wondered what had gotten into her, Iria all of a sudden ordered him to dump the soup out the window because she sensed it had been tampered with. Iria confirmed that the soup carried the faint but unmistakable scent of a strong sleeping drug, and Leo was left stunned. When Leo asked who would do something like that, Iria admitted she did not know. Iria grimly concluded that they had walked straight into a hornet's nest without noticing. At that moment, two suspicious men approached, and the danger all of a sudden felt very close. Listening carefully, Iria realized the men were after her and planned to profit by taking her while she slept. The men decided to kill Leo since they thought he was worthless, and Iria went rigid as the full danger sank in. Iria all of a sudden sprang awake and lunged at one of the intruders before he could react. She drove him into the floor so hard that he cried out on impact. With one man pinned under her and the other frozen behind her, Iria coldly demanded to know their objective. The captured thug tried to resist and spat curses at her instead of answering. Iria silenced him with a brutal headbutt, and the discomfort of the scene becomes impossible to ignore. She gave him one last warning and demanded again that he tell her what they were after. Cracking under the pressure, the thug begged for mercy and said he would talk. He confessed that they had only been hired by the priest, who wanted Iria abducted and sold. Hearing that, Iria bitterly realized the priest they had trusted was pure scum, while Leo urged her to move before things got worse. Leo agreed that they could not let a crime like that go unanswered, and Iria hardened her resolve. Hearing a sudden noise, Leo and Iria turned in shock, and Iria instantly rushed toward it before anyone could stop her. Elsewhere, several rough men surrounded a terrified young woman and closed in with clear hostility. The woman lay there trembling in tears and fear, clearly overwhelmed and unable to escape. Leo exploded in fury at the sight and cursed the men, leaving one of them stunned by the force of it. Iria cut in instantly and struck before the man could react, stopping him even as he tried to object. She drove through them without hesitation, and the men behind her cried out as her attack sent them reeling. Iria demanded to know what had happened to the other nuns, and the man panicked as he realized they were gone. Terrified, he confessed that the priest had taken them away with the others. A nun then pointed at him and admitted that she had only followed orders, explaining that because one woman resisted, the priest planned to punish her publicly as a warning to the rest. The plea for mercy came too late, and Iria struck with cold anger, refusing to let the crime pass. The nun trembled in disgust and said she could not bear to hear any more, bitterly condemning the priest as scum. Leo pulled her close and told her she was safe now, urging her to steady herself. Through tears and panic, the nun said she felt deeply stained and feared divine punishment, completely losing hold of herself. Leo stared in alarm as the nun all of a sudden addressed another sister and reacted to something that was not there. Before he could stop her, the nun grabbed a cup and poured its contents over herself, leaving Leo shocked and confused. Holding a candle, she declared that now that she had been defiled, she had to purify herself at once. Leo froze in horror while Iria watched tensely, both realizing too late what she meant to do. With tears streaming down her face, the nun burst into frantic laughter as her mind finally broke. She then threw herself into the flames in a desperate attempt to cleanse herself, turning the scene before Leo and Iria into a nightmare. He leaned in with a chilling smile and abruptly asked if she would become his servant, leaving the woman stunned. Lazuli all of a sudden clung to Drain and addressed him with devoted urgency. The hooded woman realized Lazuli was acting far too attached and concluded that something was seriously wrong with her. Flustered by what she was seeing, the hooded woman was told not to worry about them. Drain calmly explained that this was part of the contract and that he was giving his energy to his servants. He then added that if the woman became his servant too, he would do the same for her, leaving her stunned. Horrified, the hooded woman blurted out that she had a daughter, while realizing in panic that becoming a servant meant being drawn into the same arrangement. The woman froze in alarm as Drain and Lazuli faced her, and the pressure of the situation nearly crushed her. Panicking, she tried to steer the moment away by urging everyone to hurry to the great sage of the forest. When they reached a large house, Lazuli hesitantly asked if that was the place. The hooded woman confirmed that it was the home of the saint's mother, Ophelia. As the doors opened, a voice from inside welcomed them and invited the group to enter. Inside the study, the hooded woman recognized the elderly man as the great sage Nabaru and asked if he had been the one who sent the letter. Nabaru confirmed it and apologized for summoning them, so all of a sudden, the hooded woman gravely confirmed that the saint's health was failing. She explained that her daughter was growing weaker every day, yet still kept praying for the city and trying to fulfill her duty as a saint. Overcome with pain, she admitted that she could no longer bear watching her daughter suffer like that. Moved by their resolve, and the moment takes an uncomfortable turn. Nabaru then offered Fairy's water, calling it one of the rarest legendary items he possessed. He explained that while no illness could normally be cured by this elixir, even the saint's condition would surely be healed by it, leaving the mother shocked by such a precious gift. With tearful gratitude, the mother thanked the great sage and said the item would be better used for those with a future still ahead of them. Nabaru urged Ophelia to take the fairy's water to her daughter at once, and she quickly agreed. The hooded woman told Dryan-san and the others to leave the room so they could move right away. As they turned to go, Dryan paused and reacted when he heard his name. Looking straight ahead, Drain calmly asked if they were connected to him as well. Nabaru sharply pressed the boy on what he meant by that unsettling question. Drain brushed the tension aside and said they should stop talking and go see the saint, while one of the girls quietly agreed. The group rushed out of the building, driven by the need to reach the saint as fast as possible. Left behind, Nabaru realized the boy's true identity and concluded that he was Drain. With a grim expression, Nabaru judged Dryan to be a truly dangerous man. Elsewhere, the exhausted saint struggled for breath as her condition continued to worsen. The girl checked on Drain, and he brushed it off, insisting the town was already close. She pointed ahead and said the shining city in the distance was Legato. They reached the city's edge, and then something invisible stopped them cold. The girl went rigid and realized a barrier had been cast over the area. The hooded woman said with growing unease that it was the saint's prayer and no monster could pass beyond it. She added that ordinary people should still get through and stepped forward to test it. As the others watched, the girl all of a sudden felt something was wrong with Drain. She asked if anything was wrong, and he calmly said no. Drain dismissed it, but his hand moved with sudden purpose. In the next instant, he struck the barrier hard and exposed a far darker side of himself. The girl jolted and called out to Drain as his body began to change. The hooded woman froze, unable to understand what she was seeing. As the girl anxiously asked if Drain was all right, the hooded woman realized the saint's prayer only rejected true evil. A chill crawled through her as she began to wonder what Drain really was. Drain only admitted that this had become awkward. When the smoke cleared, he was calmly sitting there in a much smaller body. Drain dryly explained that he had somehow shrunk. The girl and the hooded woman could only stare, struggling to make sense of it. The girl awkwardly corrected herself and asked if Drain was all right while staring at his younger form. The hooded woman was shaken that Drain had become younger and knew this was anything but normal. Drain said the Lich Lord's power had been rejected, leaving the girl staring in disbelief. He then admitted that he could no longer control anyone. Before the shock could settle, Drain abruptly said they needed to meet the saint at once. The hooded woman quickly agreed and said the saint's mother wanted the medicine delivered right away. As she moved to help, the hooded woman quietly realized Drain was actually a good person. She hurried toward Remelia's location and called for her to wait. The hooded woman declared that she was bringing the medicine right away. Inside the grand hall, Remelius turned in surprise as the hooded woman rushed in, then stiffened when she saw her mother there too. Catching her breath, the hooded woman explained that they had received it from the great sage of the forest. The priest was stunned and realized it was the legendary fairy's water, something he had barely believed was real. Ophelia urged Remelia to drink it, certain it would make her better. Remelia looked at her mother uneasily, while Ophelia pressed her to take it now. Remelia obeyed and drank the fairy's water. Ophelia anxiously asked how she felt, desperate for any sign at all. Remelia gave a faint reply and warned her mother it would not work that quickly. Then, without warning, Remelia coughed up blood, and the calm in the room broke apart. She doubled over in a violent fit, leaving everyone frozen for one terrible beat. Ophelia panicked and screamed Remelia's name as her condition spiraled. Remelia collapsed to the floor as blood scattered around her, throwing the hall into chaos. Ophelia broke down in horror and begged someone to help Remelia right away. The priest sensed the saint's power fading and instantly knew the situation was turning catastrophic. He then felt Remelia's prayer barrier weakening and realized the city's protection was about to fail. Great Sage Nabaru appeared in the street and declared that the barrier was finally gone. The townspeople noticed him at once and called out to Lord Nabaru in alarm. As he approached, they said they had been worried because he had not appeared lately and asked if he was well. The hooded woman reached toward him in confusion, but the figure calling himself Nabaru coldly revealed that the real sage had died long ago. He burst into manic laughter and confessed that he was the one who killed Nabaru. His disguise fell away into a monstrous, serpent-like form, and the hooded woman recoiled as the creature towered over her. At the same time, urgent word spread through the city that disaster had arrived. A nun rushed in and warned the priest that monsters were invading the city, leaving him stunned by how fast everything Remelia protected was collapsing. The hooded woman warned that the enemy was charging toward the cathedral at terrifying speed and feared they were finished if no one fled now. She was struck from behind and sent flying before she could even react. As she fell, she weakly begged for help while reaching toward the others. Inside, a nun and a young woman froze as uneasy laughter echoed around them. The basilisk declared that it had finally gotten inside and raged that the barrier had infuriated it. The dark-haired figure recognized it as a basilisk and mockingly noted that strange growths seemed fused to its body. He then realized this was the one who had pretended to be the great sage in that house. The basilisk calmly admitted he had figured it out. It then confessed that it had killed the real great sage Nabaru long ago. The hooded woman trembled as she realized that meant the fairy's water had been part of the trap too. She broke down in horror as she realized she had handed something terrible to Remelia. The dark-haired elf woman confronted the basilisk and demanded to know its true objective. The basilisk revealed that its goal was to release the sealed heartbeat of Lord Garunnoa hidden beneath the cathedral. The dark-haired elf woman faltered when the basilisk added that the real issue was that the saint possessed the key. The hooded woman coughed weakly and urged her mother to run, then admitted through tears that she could no longer move. The basilisk coldly declared that it would not let anyone there escape. A priest all of a sudden realized his body would not move, and panic spread as the basilisk's power paralyzed him. The basilisk ordered them to stay frozen and warned that even if it left them like that, death would still come. A terrified nun shouted that they would die just like the others if they stayed there. The witch-looking woman cried out to drain Sama in alarm as the situation spiraled even further. The basilisk declared that it would drain the woman's strength because her condition was especially useful. The saint shut her eyes and tensed as the threat closed in on her mother. The basilisk demanded that the saint hand over the key or face even worse consequences. The saint was horrified when the basilisk warned that her mother would be left lifeless before her eyes. The basilisk mocked the saint for standing frozen while her mother suffered right in front of her. The saint weakly called for her mother, and the basilisk cruelly claimed the woman's strength was already fading away. The mother cried out in agony as the attack on her life force intensified. Even while collapsing, the mother insisted the key must never be surrendered, and the basilisk sneered at that resolve. The daughter desperately begged her mother to stop thinking about her, while panic swallowed her whole. Laughing viciously, the basilisk rebelled in the mother falling apart before her daughter. The basilisk forced the saint to watch and mocked Ophelia for breaking under the torment. Ophelia cried out in pain while the basilisk urged the saint to notice her life force draining away. Barely able to scream, Ophelia breathed sharply weakly as the basilisk warned that she would die at this rate. The witch-looking woman watched in disgust as the cruelty kept unfolding. Realizing Dren had lost his power, the witch-looking woman thought someone in the state could be controlled. The basilisk revealed that the key was inside its heart, forcing the answer into view before the saint at last. The saint tearfully begged the basilisk not to kill her mother. Grinning viciously, the basilisk said it would grant that wish. It then coldly declared that it would kill Ophelia after killing the saint first. As Ophelia weakly begged it to stop, the basilisk cruelly proposed making the mother watch her daughter's final moments. The saint snapped in panic and desperately begged the basilisk to stop. Behind her, the basilisk loomed over Ophelia and cruelly urged the saint to scream louder for its amusement. Through her fading strength, Ophelia said she had something she needed to tell her mother. Ophelia weakly thanked her mother for getting the medicine for her. She then told her mother that she loved her. The saint broke down in horror as the basilisk moved to carry out its threat before her eyes. At that moment, a sudden voice calmly asked if someone there was in trouble. In the empty dark space, a lone figure appeared. The witch-looking woman looked around in confusion and realized the space itself had changed. The saint instantly recognized the newcomer and cried out to Lord Drain with tears of relief. Lord Drain admitted that she had already lost much of her power. Sitting calmly before them, Lord Drain warned that this was no ordinary contract and told them to prepare themselves.